everyone. Jamin Shively here, aka Darth Vegan. Good to see you all. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to give an introduction and overview to Lawless in Seattle, and I'd like to think of it as a conversation, and I invite you to as well. Please note as you watch any comments, any questions, objections, ideas, whatever you'd like to offer to the conversation, and love to be in conversation with you, whether on Zoom. We're going to be starting some public Zoom meetings, and or live in person, as I perform about once a week these days. It's the winter time in Seattle, when weather permits. And I want to first point out that we have a good summary on lawlessinseattle.com, a good written summary. And I'd like to point out my perspective, why lawless in Seattle. I maintain that we are lawless in Seattle insofar as we are missing the absolutely most important and most vital laws for protection of people and Mother Earth as a whole. So I'll delve into the number one and number two most important laws, Hungerless in Seattle and Seattle Cool, in a moment. But I first wanted to give kind of the broader context of uh, the poly crisis, right? Um, the poly crisis consists of nothing less than the sum total of all of our existential planetary crises, starting with the destruction of the biosphere, the destruction of the very web of life, which is ongoing and growing exponentially, the sixth mass extinction. Um, uh, and as I talk about these things, I'm alerted to one existential crisis that doesn't really normally make the list, is our crisis of awareness, right? And our crisis of lack of communication about this with each other, but instead having kind of a mass delusion, and combined with mass ignorance on certain topics, and a culture that doesn't support addressing the poly crisis. That's an existential crisis right there. And then you've got all the usual suspects, not suspects, but convicts at this point: hunger, starvation, malnutrition, runaway animal agriculture, runaway commercial fishing, runaway exponential planetary overheating, arguably the most deadly of all, runaway inequality, war, nuclear war, World War III, whether by proxy, hot war, cold war, it's all, one bundle. Pollution and contamination, runaway technologies such as AI, CRISPR, runaway totalitarianism, racism, separation, and other forms of othering, runaway capitalism, runaway extraction, planetary overshoot, crossing planetary boundaries. I mean, it's a huge list, each of which is existential. And we've got all of them. I mean, it's like the last scene of um, what was that old great movie, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, where the whole Bolivian army is shooting at them. What are their chances? We are Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and it's the final scene. So we need to pull something absolutely magical out of a hat, and we need to do it now. Whatever our window is, it is closing so fast, that we've got to jump on it right now. So, in addition to the poly crisis, I want to introduce two other polys. Okay, the first is poly solution. To that poly crisis, that wicked, wicked, gargantuan, multidimensional poly crisis, we need to hit it with a poly solution, the poly solution, the set of solutions that are going to be required to solve all those problems. And there's good news. So hang in there. Um, the good news is to come, but we first have to work through the stages. And in order to conceive of and co-create and implement uh, the poly solution, we ourselves as a species need to rapidly undergo our own poly transformation. right? The sum total of all of our transformations, which I like to conveniently summarize as us transforming from Homo sapiens to Homo ahimsa. Um, so that's the larger context here. And, you know, what Seattle got to do with it, Seattle is an absolutely amazing, powerful, trend-setting city, now metropolis, with just incredible talent, amazing talent that has seen it all before and done it all before in terms of setting global trends and spreading them all around the world, whether it's jet aircraft, Starbucks third space, right? You know, the operating systems that run our computers and our phones, the e-commerce systems by which we get our stuff. I mean, it all came out of Seattle. So we have quite a bit of noblesse oblige, but it's actually going to be such an incredible ride that, you know, it's not something to be afraid of. It's something to embrace. All right, so let's now shift gears and talk about law number one, hungerless in Seattle. Um, the objectives are very simple. Everyone gets to eat three healthy, nutritious, and not just delicious, but literally absolutely gourmet. And we'll get into how we achieve that in a moment, but that we deliver and serve three absolutely delicious gourmet plant-based meals to anyone and everyone who wants them through dozens of community cafes throughout the city, all supplied by one central community kitchen, very large community kitchen with all the capacity we need. And it will undoubtedly grow over time. But the point is to centralize production so that we can maintain absolute highest quality standards of gourmet. And then it gets shipped from there to all the various community cafes, which serve the food hot and cold to all the customers. And what we're talking about is so transformational because we're going to become the first hunger-free metropolis in the world. Okay, absolutely hunger-free, and the first metropolis to go plant-based. Because guess what? These aren't just for the food insecure, these are for everyone. Every single Seattleite will be going to these community cafes. They'll be convenient, one in every neighborhood, and incredible community centers for building community, which is yet another basic human need, right? So, right out of the gate, we're solving for not just food, but incredible nutrition, um, community, transition to a plant-based diet. Um, and really, along with this comes a spiritual transformation. There's no way Seattle gets out of the spiritual transformation implementing Hungerless in Seattle. It's impossible. All right. We'll talk more about the logistics and details and other things in another video. The last point I wanted to make on this is that I believe it will actually be massively cash flow positive. Again, because everyone's going to be eating there. They're going to be the coolest places in the city to hang out, to connect, and to have that spiritual experience of eating with your whole community, everyone eating the same foods. It's all plant-based, cruelty-free, and that we're setting a trend here because people are going to flock to Seattle to try the amazing gourmet plant-based foods. So cash flow, people are going to be donating. People are going to fall in love with life again with Hungerless in Seattle, and so people are going to be donating generously. We're going to have no problem um, with this. I actually spoke with Bill Gates about it. It's going to happen, and with that, we have the spiritual transformation. All right. Um, and it's going to spread like dominoes. People all around the world are going to be watching Seattle and the miracle in Seattle. And what's going to happen is the two revolutions are going to happen in parallel, that everyone gets to eat and that we're making the transition to plant-based foods. It becomes a planetary phenomenon, right? Now, let's shift gears to law number two, Seattle Cool. Seattle Cool is all about cooling the planet using technology developed and perfected right here in Seattle at the University of Washington's Department of Atmospheric Sciences. And the program is called the Marine Cloud Brightening Program in that department. Check it out. We have the technology to cool the planet. The solution is very simple. With 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000, I don't know the number, but somewhere in that order of magnitude of ocean-going, wind-powered, uh, large, substantial ships um, will be spraying ocean seawater that's been filtered out of gunk, but keep the salt. The salt is our friend, into tiny, tiny, tiny microscopic droplets, which become cloud condensation nuclei, which form by their very nature, by their very volumetric density of these nuclei, um, bright white clouds that reflect sunlight back into space, thus reversing the heat imbalance that has given us exponential planetary overheating. We now get to counter that. We get to reverse it. We get to cool the planet, and we urgently need to cool the planet. So, what's our job in terms of Seattle Cool? Well, we're going to have multiple jobs. First of all, we're spearheading the technology and spearheading the conversation at a planetary level. And here's where we get to overcome uh, that existential planetary crisis that I mentioned, the crisis of awareness, right? Crisis of delusion, crisis of ignorance. We get to shatter all that here in Seattle with everyone getting into everyone getting into the conversation and it becoming dinner table conversation and us developing, producing, or simply identifying, because the research has been done, the analysis has been done, the computer modeling's been done, everything's been done. It's all being measured. It's not some mystery anymore. Well, we need to demystify this non-mystery. If it's really not a mystery, let's demystify it. First for us, for Seattle, and for the world. But actually, it's not first for us because everything that we're doing very publicly. Anyone in the world can watch this video. Welcome to Seattle, whether in person or virtually, right? On Zoom and the other, people are communicating about this on Reddit. It's or we got TikTok. Anyway, we're trying to do it all. And but the with Seattle Cool specifically, we're going to be talking with the world about this, demystifying it, and also demystifying not only the problem and the exponential and existential nature of the problem and the urgency of it, like an urgency on the timescale of months at this point. Frankly, we're lucky we've made it this far, but things are going downhill very, very exponentially in terms of planetary overheating. So we need to demystify that and lead the conversation on both the demystified problem and the demystified solution set. Because one of the hurdles that we need to overcome is there's all this opposition to geoengineering, as if geoengineering were one single witch's brew and it's simply bad and we've got to throw the whole thing into the fire and never hear from it again. No, that's not the case. It's not one single witch's brew. There's a whole bunch of different solutions under the banner geoengineering, the best of which is marine cloud brightening, the one I mentioned before, which is we have the technology thanks to the University of Washington. Now we need to tell the story and get the world on board with whatever the best combination of solutions turns out to be, right? But I'm telling you now, I mean, I studied hydroclimatology as a graduate student at MIT back in the 90s. I've been tracking this for decades, and we're almost at the edge of the cliff. We need to get off this runaway train of exponential planetary overheating and reverse course, cool the planet. So it's controversial. Everything I'm saying is controversial. Absolutely everything I'm saying. I talk about a spiritual transformation and transforming our species. Oh, he's crazy, whatever. People are calling me crazy on the social media, whatever. So it's controversial stuff. It's absolutely essential. Please join the conversation. Thank you for watching this video and subsequent videos, and see you very soon on the next video. Thank you.